This is the hardest problem in the world to solve. Really hard problems need massive amounts of creativity and collaboration. Are you most collaborative and most creative when you're scared or when you're having a lot of fun?
Definitely having a lot of fun.
That's it. So the whole narrative around climate change needs to change, period. So what Holocene is going to do is make it fun and make it exciting. It's not about the extinction of species. We all know that stuff. That's not motivating anybody anymore. What about the fact that 50% of all renewable capacity is available in Africa? What about the fact that 75% of the buildings that are going to be built in Africa haven't been built yet, and therefore we can build them right from day one? What about the fact that electric vehicles will most likely be able to be the urban fleets for Africa, maybe even faster than they could be in Europe and the States? Like, that's really interesting, right? So now let's go outside, let's have some fun, let's learn some new skills, and try to solve this problem together.
Josh.
Yes, welcome.
Just by observing your lifestyle, it has come to my attention that you live a pretty balanced lifestyle. So I'd like to know, what would you rate your overall well-being if I had to say it's a scale of 1 to 10? What would that number be for you?
You hopped right into it. I like it. It's a good question. And I'm glad, for one, that I project a level of balance in the world, because that's not how it always feels internally. And this is, I'd say, probably the thing I think about the most in my life, actually, is how to, on a daily basis, find balance. You have these macro kind of balance moments. There's moments where you're going to work a lot. There's moments where your family's going to be really intense. And you have to figure out in those kind of macro moments how to find balance. But to me, balance is literally a daily practice. It's almost an hourly practice to try to figure out, okay, what do I need right now across my life? I have to be very deliberate about it, because I try to do a lot. I like to have, as you'll hear today, I like to have experiences, like to optimize the most precious resource on the planet, which is our time, and is, in my view, our experience as well. So I think balance is hypercritical. I actually personally break balance down into 4 quadrants. And this is literally how analytical I get about this stuff. First and foremost is my fitness, or kind of, I guess, fitness and spirituality weirdly come together for me. I find a lot of calm and spirituality through activity. And generally those activities, especially living in a place like Stellenbosch, are outdoors. So being able to find release and find tranquility and find some suffering in the fitness that you do in nature is really important. My second one is my wife. So my commitment to my partner and my commitment to our life together. My third one is my kids. So my commitment to raising humans that can help build the world and help just be wonderful people, or they're their best people, I should say. And then the last one is work. And I'm not saying that in order, but it does start to fall in that order, weirdly enough. At 42 years old, I think I've started to shift around order a good bit. But work for me is, I love solving problems. I love working in teams. I love innovation and just the idea of creativity. So for me, it's pretty much on a daily basis figuring out, how do you balance between those 4 things? Where are you underinvesting? Where are you overinvesting? And then how do you, even if you can just micro dose, if you will, like a little one, like we were having a chat before we started the podcast today about, even just after giving a presentation, or maybe even playing with the kids or something, if something has been a little bit energy draining, then quickly being able to fill back up that energy by going for a walk or getting into nature, or for me, taking a drive, something like that. So ask me any time of the day and my balance answer will be different. But I think that's fun. I enjoy that part.
And how did you come to the 4 priorities that you mentioned?
I mean, my system for anything in life, and that's really, I mean, hopefully a key takeaway from maybe this discussion today, and it's, again, one human just in their how they look at the world, is to create systems and frameworks. So and the way I build systems and frameworks is generally go into areas that I don't really understand, whether it's finance or balance or startups, and get as smart as possible. Like, read books, talk to people, start to have hypotheses. And then I think, which is, I think, a personal superpower, and I just don't mind asking people questions. Like, I assume people have more information than I do. And I assume if I put questions out to the world that I find interesting and I ask people that I trust and respect about those questions, that I'll get good feedback. And so I really start to create hypotheses. I put them into the world, literally, whether it's around starting a business or where I should move to in the world, or if what the 4 quadrants of balance are. And you get feedback, and then you iterate based on that feedback, and you try it yourself, and you see what feels right. So I think it's a really iterative process. Design thinking, and we can get into what design thinking is today, is a tool that's changed my life. The system, the decision-making process that's defined by design thinking, I think is phenomenal and can be used across all parts of life. So it's probably the answer. It's like design thinking mixed in with curiosity, really. Yeah.
Okay, so would you say that your belief system is based on experience and seeking individuals whose life that you want to portray? Would you get insights and nuggets from them and then form that, and then of course your belief system forms your actions?
Oh man, we went deep really quickly. I didn't know we were going down here. This is cool. I dig this. A belief system. Wow. I mean, the overarching belief of my life is, for good or for bad, I think we get one go at it. Like I think if I get to the afterlife and there's heaven waiting, that's icing on the cake. That's like my bull case scenario. My base case scenario is that, like, cool, this is it. We turn into ether, and that was the go, and that's really fine too. That's cool. But if that is the underlying kind of first principle, then I do believe you can live lots of lives in one lifetime. So if I only have one lifetime, how many experiences and lives can I live within that one? Part of that is having your own experiences, but part of it is also gaining new mental models from other people. So for instance, I've been to 75 countries. I've held 6 different working visas. I think I've lived in at least 10 countries for 6 months. I love travel, but what I love is the ability to gain different mental models. So if you only grow up in one place, you only have one mental model. So by travel, and by not only traveling, but trying to get into the fabrics of a culture and understanding how a culture works, starting a business is a really great way to figure out how a culture actually works, allows you to now see different mental models. So I know, for instance, some of the things I learned in America by growing up there were phenomenal. Hard work, meritocracy, really like creative thinking. But some things didn't work for me in that mental model. Over capitalism, overspending, just a general level, I think, of anger and aggression that didn't work for me. For instance, South Africa, where we've lived for the last 5 years, an incredibly humble culture, really warm and generous people. Family is first, like very, very family oriented, very willing to help a friend. On the other side, sometimes I think maybe thinking a little too small. Sometimes people here do, and none of these are negatives either, but failure is failure. Taking risks is difficult and maybe not socially acceptable. And sometimes people here aren't able to have enough ego and enough arrogance. Like people that are incredible here are like, oh yeah, I got lucky. And I'm like, no, you're really good. Like you're incredibly smart and work hard. So there's a level of humility here almost in excess. But again, I wouldn't know, but I can take both those things into my life. So being in Asia, similar stuff, you can take new things away. So I think the belief systems come from having different mental models. The other one is reading, right? So if you read, I mean, there's a saying that if you don't read, you live one life. If you read, you live 1,000 lives. So now you get to see different mental models. You get to see different ways people come at problems. Same thing for startups. Like, how do you think about the books that are written for Silicon Valley versus what happens down here? Same stuff. So belief systems, I think, can be built over time through experiences. And they do actually, obviously, affect how you operate in the world then. And so I think mine's been built by just a lot of like testing and learning, just going to new places and saying what's going on here, what do I want to take and what do I want to leave, and yeah, hopefully it's a global belief system. I think that's the most important part. Is I've always wanted to have a global view, and that's really only achievable by putting yourself in a global setting and trying to be curious and learn.
You began your career in investment banking.
Yeah.
What major lessons did you learn from that environment?
Oh man, I'll be clear. I loved investment banking. I did it for 11 years. I didn't love all parts of it, but I mean, America is a meritocracy. So, I mean, it's a silly story, but I did okay in university and okay in high school, but I wasn't that interested. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, I found the learning's kind of boring and not at the right time. And I just didn't feel like sitting in class, and I wanted to learn what I wanted to learn. So I didn't really do that well. And then I got to New York and was like, cool, I want to work really hard and I want to do something I find really interesting. And so I got to work in an investment bank, helping structure really creative and innovative securities and then trading them. So solving customer problems through asset finance, which I find finance to be this fascinating puzzle. It's like, how do you put all these weird data points together to come with something that makes the most sense? And there's numbers behind it, there's storytelling, there's humans, there's computers. It's like a very, I don't know, the environment I worked in, I loved. And then you trade. And to me, trading, as a behavioral economist, which is my training, the interplay of humans and numbers in a over-the-counter esoteric market is fascinating. So if you have the animal spirits of humans mixed in with a tradable security, you're going to see wild stuff. And I was blessed and also a little bit crazy to work through the financial crisis. So I saw, firsthand, the most animal spirits of humans interacting in a market environment, which I found really, really fascinating. The key takeaway was I got to New York with no money and didn't know what I wanted to do. And if you work super hard, that is the American dream. If you work super hard, if you differentiate, then you can build something. And over the course of that career, I was able to build a title and build some wealth, and most importantly, build some technical expertise and build some experience. So I think the lesson learned there was, I think if people are listening today, I get a lot of questions from entrepreneurs in their early 20s. Like, oh, I got out of university and I went to a startup, and I can only talk my experience and my learnings, but I really loved working in a corporate setting in my 20s. I thought working at a corporate in my 20s, I had tons of mentors. People really showed me what professionalism looks like. You can't really step out of line in a corporate setting. If you're not accountable, if you're not bringing your A game, especially in these type of environments, like working in a Fortune 50 company, you're not going to be there for long. So that technical skill you gain in your 20s, the mentors, the professionalism of that, I think is hyper important. So even if people want to be in their startups in their 20s, which I think is great, make sure you're building a specialized skill. In startups, and we'll talk about this throughout probably today's discussion, because then I did 10 years of like startup stuff, and it's been pretty generalized for the last 10, 12 years. Don't come out of your 20s not with a thing that you do really well. Whether you have a CA or a CFA or some sort of thing that says to the world, I know something deep about something. I think that's really, really important to have. And ideally, it's not just a master's or a PhD. It's something that's market driven. If you want to be in the market, if you want to do academia, then do that stuff. But that was my key learning, was put your head down and grind. Like, put the hours in. Kobe Bryant's one of a person I really emulate. And Kobe talks about, just putting in the extra work. If you put in an extra, not only grinding, but that's that moment in your life when you most time don't have kids, don't have a ton of responsibilities. Money is kind of fungible. Just putting in the time and effort and really specializing, I think, was my takeaway.
And during the crisis, was this your key formula for you guys to actually, I think you generated more than 50% the previous year, the current year than the previous year of revenue. So was it because of this mentality and this grit and this hard work?
Yeah, no, I worked super hard. Like I'm always the belief. I'm definitely never the smartest guy in the room, 100%. I know that for sure, but I can outwork almost anybody. I believe that 100%. Now it's a little bit tougher with kids and all, but I still can outwork across a number of spectrums. But that's just my belief system, is that, and that's where I grew up too. I grew up in Philadelphia. It's the home of Rocky. It's the home of like the underdog. Never the brightest, never the smartest, never the best looking. Just work hard. Just grind it out. Put your hours in. If they ask you to shovel coal, be the best at it. I'm really cool with that. What that actual experience taught me, because my first startup was 2008. So in 2007, my partner and I set the single year record for most revenue from a sales team, like a sales and trading team. We just had an incredible year, just an incredible year, but the bank lost $5 billion. This was the beginning of the financial crisis. And so at the end of the year, in this hyper-capitalist system, they said, hey, thanks for all that hard work. Thanks for the $120 million of revenue that you created for the company. But like, your bonus is you get to keep your job. I was like 25, 26 years old. I'm like, I'm sorry, what? Like, that's not how this thing's supposed to work. Like, I'm working in a capitalist system. I'm supposed to own my upside. And I worked hard for that. The realization, and then it got way, way worse. Like my group, which was incredibly profitable and probably the best on Wall Street, went from 300 people down to 100 people, while other firms like Bear Stearns and others went under. So it became very clear to corporate, it's not about your performance, it's about the performance of the corporate. So if you believe, so a lot of people go into corporates thinking that their job, that they don't have, they have a lot of job security. I don't think that's true. I think at corporates, even if you're really good, you may still get fired. So the delta between your work and your performance and your pay isn't as clear as I think people think it is. So in 2008, during the financial crisis, a market opportunity opened where I could grab a couple guys from Bear Stearns, a couple guys from UBS, and we started a company. And we basically bought a license and started trading and doing some consulting and advisory. And that was my first startup and by far my most financially successful. So I think the one takeaway was, if you're at a corporate, really assess what your real risk is. And is it tied to your personal performance? Yeah, so that's why I love startups. If your startup fails, it's probably on you, and that's fine. Like I'm cool to own that risk, and I'm also cool to own that responsibility. At a corporate, it never made sense to me that I can do really, really well and either not get paid or lose my job. The second piece was that you need, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to do the big thing, you have to take risks. Take calculated risks, give it a go. That first startup for me was an incredible, incredible experience. It did very, very well, but it also come back to belief systems. 27 years old, it definitely took me down a personal behavior path that I'm not proud of. So, I mean, the stuff, Wolf of Wall Street, all that stuff is hyperbolistic, but it's real. Like, I mean, you see it throughout sports. People all of a sudden start making a little bit of money and they do dumb stuff. That experience actually showed me, and it's a cliche, but if you don't stand for anything, you'll fall. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So hyper important experience to be able to start a company, to take a risk, but then to say, if it does go well, I think this is important for entrepreneurs out there. The moment when companies start to go well is when things start to explode. So as soon as you start selling like crazy or the money really starts flowing, that's actually when it gets real. And how do you interact with your founders? How do you interact with your family? How do you present in the world? For some people, maybe they handle that better than I did. But at that point in my life, it was an interesting experience to have something be financially successful. But personally, I think not that great of an experience.
Is that where perhaps good leadership comes in?
Yeah, I think it can be leadership, but partly culture. So we focus a lot. I mean, one of the big studies I've done, a lot of the literature I've read, a lot of what we put into practice over the last couple of years is how does culture affect your startup? How does a culture affect not only your work life, but how you present in the world? So I think if you do hit that, what we call product market fit moment, assume everything will break. Assume your operations will break, your culture will break, your mission will break, everything will break. How do you set yourself up for the break before it breaks, right? So before that big moment, if you've done a really good job as a company of really defining your culture, then you should ride through that moment pretty well. Your culture should actually strengthen through these moments. Your systems, even though they're going to bend, shouldn't break. And then when things bend but don't break, they become more resilient. Like that's the way this thing works. But things like accounting or CRMs or databases, like you can't fix that stuff after the big moment. You have to fix it before and then be able to update during the chaos. So that was a big learning for me, was that you have to build for scale before scale happens. But that's both professionally as well as personally. Again, if you don't know exactly how you want to present in the world, if you don't know how to balance family and work, if you don't know how to talk to investors about the next round and promise but not overpromise, then these are things that can really get back to this idea of animal spirits. When things really start to become real, animal spirits can come out. So you have to have done the work before that.
Yeah, these are some good nuggets. Speaking about, so that environment, as you described it, was that the reason why you kind of shifted and went to off-grid electric and that whole journey? And could you also describe off-grid electric and maybe how impactful that was towards individuals in Tanzania?
For sure. And I think, again, another framework that at least I employ in my life is that your career is a series of steps. I don't think our generation has to be in a linear career anymore. So my dad's a doctor, my father-in-law is a lawyer. I think these are incredible professions, but ones that are generally like a linear career. Like you do this thing for 30 or 40 years. It's really, really a great thing to do. I do think our generation can plan their career in a series of steps. Like I look at my career now in a series of almost 3 steps. And so this will kind of get to your question. But that first step was, again, building that technical skill. So in my 20s, like grinding, putting in the hard work, building a technical skill, gaining some expertise that I could lean back on. By the time I was 32, I'd been in banking for 11 years. I was done. Like I was pretty cool with the experience. I achieved what I wanted to achieve. But I realized, and this is one of my heroes, Doug Tompkins. So Doug Tompkins started the North Face, but then went on to do conservation on Patagonica. So basically said, okay, I want to take all the money I made from the North Face and just do conservation. And there's a book out now called A Wild Idea, which I highly recommend, all about Doug and Chris Tompkins and their work. But he says that he climbed a mountain. He just realized he climbed the wrong mountain, which I love. And so he had to reclimb. So I do think in my first 10 years, I climbed a mountain, which it was an awesome experience, a very difficult experience, but a lot of fun. But it wasn't the mountain I needed to climb. Like getting to the top of a capitalist system wasn't exactly what gave me meaning.
Just on this point, sorry to interrupt. This is something I really struggle with, is head down going, don't have a problem with working hard or drive or determination, but at times it could feel like I'm climbing up the wrong mountain. Yeah. So what advice do you have to individuals on how to climb up the right mountain?
I would make sure you climb. Like it's better to ask that question, I think, from the top. I think too many people start climbing mountains and stop too quickly, and they don't really know if it was the right mountain or not. I think people have, especially I think this generation, I don't want to sound like an old man these days, but we are addicted to serotonin. We're addicted to the endorphin rush of new things. 19-second videos are the only videos that work now. It's not 20 seconds anymore. By tomorrow, it'll be 10 seconds. So climb the mountain for a while. I do think people should climb the mountain and struggle and grind. For me, it's always been clear when it was the wrong mountain, because I climbed for a while and I probably went across the peak and over down the other side and came back up. I probably exhausted, but there's definitely, I remember when I was leaving Wall Street, I went to a mentor, because again, I just go to mentors and ask them questions and try to learn. And Bill Barmier, who, if you ever listen to this podcast, a huge thanks to Bill, was a senior partner at Midyard Networks, one of the first impact investing firms. But he was a very successful lawyer at eBay. And I said, hey, Bill, how do you know when it was time to shift from eBay to impact investing before that was even a thing? And I thought he'd have some prophetic thing to tell me, or some I don't know, equation or something that would help define it. And he just said, when you know, you'll know. I said, oh man, what a crappy answer, right? But it was the best answer. It really was, because you almost have to wait for the moment when you're this is over. I can tell you the exact moment when I was walking down Fifth Avenue in New York in 2012, going to a meeting that I didn't care about, getting rained on, having the flu for the fourth time, and being I am done. This experience is over. I'm done with this mountain. This isn't the right mountain, and it's time to go climb a new one. So that was the transition into Africa and into clean energy. So in 2012, 2013, again, I love travel. And when I travel, I love just to, what I call, get weird, just go off and go talk to people and see what's going on in these places. And it became very clear to me you can look back in 2013, the science behind climate change was starting to materialize, but there was still a lot of debate around what the science was and if people believed it. But I would go and climb Kilimanjaro and talk to the porter and say, hey, where were the glaciers when you were a kid? Okay, cool. Go to Myanmar and be at Inle Lake and talk to a fisherman and say, hey, where was the lake when you were a kid and how many fish did you catch? Go talk to people. Or, hey, farmer in Mexico, when did the rains come when you were a kid versus now? How are your crop yields today versus what they were when your parents were farming? And it was becoming very clear to me, at least through these kind of esoteric data points, that this thing was getting real. And especially when you travel to places and have really amazing experiences with people that really live a much more harsh life than you do. Because I always went back to New York or San Francisco, went back to my warm, comfortable home. You're talking to people who are, this is their life. If the earth doesn't sustain them, then they aren't going to be able to prosper. And these people showed me so many amazing experiences. They offered me in their homes. When they had two, they gave me one. Had these phenomenal experiences and said, cool, how do we, climate change is a thing, period. In 2013, I said, cool, this thing is happening. Not only do I want to play a part in it, but I also was coming around to the idea that for me, nature is absolutely critical to my well-being. So my work in climate change isn't totally altruistic. It's not for everyone else. It's also for me. I need nature in order to be my best person. I love open spaces. I think humans forget that for the last 2 million years for 99.9% of our species, we were outdoors. We had our hands in the mud. We were living in harsh conditions, but living with the earth. It's only been the last 100, 150 years when we got out of that model. And I think our souls crave the feel of the earth. I know mine does. So
mine too.
Yeah. If you live in Stellenbosch, if you live in the Western Cape, your soul most likely yearns for the outdoors. That's, I think, why people come here. It's why people came to California. It makes a ton of sense. So in 2013, I said, cool, it's time. It's time to figure that thing out. I also at that point had one startup that had worked really well, the financial one, and one that was absolutely terrible. If my brother ever hears this podcast, I'm sorry we started that business. I'm sorry I put you through that. It was not a good business. So I was like, cool, I'm 1 for 2. I'm 50% on this whole business thing. Again, to go back to my frameworks, if I want to get good at something. So I said, cool, I want to be a full-time entrepreneur. I want to have impact, but I also want to be commercial. I believe that impact is most scalable when it is viable, when it's commercial. I mean, it makes commercial sense because the world's driven by a commercial sentiment. We've adopted capitalism as our overarching economic system, and cool, it's work within that constraint. So I want to build stuff. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to have impact where I can have it the most and be the most additive. And again, not altruistic. I said at the moment, want to solve hard problems with cool people in beautiful places, and ideally have someone else pay for it. That was my design, my design challenge when I was in 2013 trying to design a new life for myself. And this was the second big phase of my career. And I got to pivot to Stanford. I got to go to what I think is my happy place on earth. Like Stanford is just this incredible cauldron of smart people in a really creative environment, in a really risk-taking environment, in a super nerdy environment, just trying to invent new things. And really but also with a lot of empathy and compassion. It's a very unique place, but got to go there and really just try to learn from, like, ask questions, learn from the best, like ask people who I know and who I respect, how do you do it? What mistakes did you make and how that thing worked? But again, you're learning really a global north set of beliefs and practices, because that's where these businesses have been built. And yeah, then long answer to an easy question, pivoted into Africa. So went to business school with the premise of I want to be a full-time entrepreneur. I want to work in the global south because I think it can be most additive there. Really started looking at the climate tech landscape at that time. And most of the focus was on off-grid solar. Part of that is access to energy, but it also really comes back to my investment thesis that the global south, there's a strong value proposition to the customer for climate tech goods. So I'm still of the belief that people aren't paying more to be climate positive. Even in the global north, people don't buy a Tesla because they care about the planet. They buy it because it's cool. That'll change in the next 15, 20 years, but people are not making economic decisions at this moment in time for the climate. And I'm cool with that. Like, that's just what it is. That'll change, but I have to build around that. In Africa, given the lack of infrastructure, given the lack of government support, and given the needs of the customers, there's a really strong value proposition to people for, say, off-grid solar. The grid's not coming. Even if it did, you couldn't afford it and you have nothing to plug in. What if we can be really innovative and sell you something that you really value in your home today that can have the same effect? All you care about is charging a cell phone or running a TV or a light the same way that you and I, it's what we care about when we go home. But amazingly enough, it can be renewable from day one. And I always call these things by the way. And by the way, it's climate positive. No one cares about climate positivity right now, is my belief. It will happen in our lifetime. But for now, everything that I want to build and I believe can be scalable and viable has a strong value proposition to the customer. And by the way, it's climate positive. So for me, off-grid solar and working where I did for the next 6 years was the best way to get into a sector that was really addressing that problem. How do we build socially responsible, commercially viable businesses? And it was a wonderful experience. I got to get to Tanzania. Ended up living and working. We opened up 10 different markets over the next 6 years across 2 companies. Got to travel to 22 of them. Got to spend at least 3 to 4 months in about 6 or 7 of them. So I had a really fun experience. And built with some just incredible people. Like the people that I got to work with were just so phenomenal. Because I do think when you find your mountain, you also find your other hikers. Like it's once you figure out, you'll know you're on the right mountain when the people around you are people you want to be with. I think that's probably a good little one.
Definitely.
Yeah. Like if you're looking around, you're like asking people for directions on the mountain and everyone's telling you to go away. It's probably not the right mountain. If you're asking people for directions and people are saying, hey, like, let me walk to the top with you, or hey, like, you want some of my water, then you might be on the right mountain. So I found just this whole like group of people with these kindred spirits. They wanted to have raw experiences. They wanted to innovate. They wanted to live and work kind of at the knife's edge of innovation and do it because of a bigger meaning and a bigger consciousness. And I think the world's figuring that out. 10 years on, I do see so many people wanting to be part of climate, like wanting to have climate impact, wanting to put their their brain to use, but also do something meaningful. And I think that's what I'm really trying to tell people about climate change and working in climate tech or in the climate problem at all, is that it is the hardest problem our species will ever face. If you like solving hard problems, there's no harder problem to solve, but it's also so rewarding because you know you're solving something that, or you're working with people who want to solve a problem that's so meaningful. So I think that's like, maybe that's the key takeaways. You'll know you're climbing the right mountain when you're asking people for questions and you feel like they're getting it. You're getting it from them.
And in terms of your roles and responsibilities, you played a vital and instrumental role in raising capital. So what made you so effective in doing that? Was it tapping into your network? Was it, in a time where climate tech wasn't really a thing?
Yeah. So again, this is one human's view on the world, but it's important to build that technical skill in your first 10 years of your career because that's what gave me a seat at the table. So now when I went to startups, so what I didn't want to do was just give up 10 years of intellectual property, give up 10 years of hard work and say, cool, let me do something totally different. That doesn't really make sense either. When you go to a startup, you have to bring value from day one. There's no time. You have to bring something to the table that no one else has. So that's really, really important. With that technical skill, like did I want to? So at Zola, I was the VP of corporate finance. So really in charge of figuring out how to make the business run in terms of funding. At Phoenix, I was CFO. I mean, is that the role I really wanted in my soul? Not really. Like I like doing others. I'd rather design things. I'd rather be commercial. But I really wanted a seat at the table. I really wanted to be able to be part of the decision-making process. I wanted to see how big companies or like really fast-growing companies were run. I wanted to be at that VP or C level. And these were both like Series A type companies, so a little bit more mature, but still figuring out what they were, really how to scale. And that seat was fundraising. It wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I had that technical skill from the 10 years I did or 11 years at Credit Suisse. What I tried to do is use that technical skill to also allow me to do things I wanted to do. So for me, that was new market expansion. So I got to help open a bunch of new markets. When you do a lot of the fundraising and CFO type duties, you really have to understand pricing and commercial strategy. The best way to sell shares in your company is to sell a lot of products from your company. So I really love customer pricing. I love figuring out how to make the pricing models work, how to sign B2B contracts, how to market expand. So I really got to do a lot of cool stuff that I frankly didn't really have training in. Like I had some training, but not in that setting because I brought a technical skill to the table. So for me, fundraising in that environment was never easy, but it was something I knew how to do. And I used that knowledge to allow me to do other things as well.
And were the investors actually did they believe in the mission as much as the founders?
Yeah, I think, the really interesting part about our investors, and I think about what climate tech is in Africa, and it's a gift as well as a curse. So climate tech in Africa, in my view historically, and this may be controversial, lives somewhere between solving the climate crisis and frankly serving poor people. And there's a lot of funding out there that really can't decide if it wants to serve poor people, which is generally done by governments or grants or concessionary funding, or if it wants to be commercially viable and have 30% IRRs similar to fintech or property tech. So in some ways, I think the real gift of this first wave of climate tech, which was primarily pay-go solar, and it was really like the solar industry is what really got climate tech going in Africa, is that it attracted a lot of donor capital. It attracted a lot of concessionary capital, a lot of people who said, cool, we want to get access to energy, we want to get access to finance, which is great. Like these are all great, great things. I think a little bit of the downside is that in the end, I still think investor returns are too high. Investor expectations of returns are too high. Unfortunately, entrepreneurs are also telling stories that are saying, hey, like these are the returns you're going to see, which are too high as well. So that was wave one. I think wave one was very beneficial. It was really important to have it happen. The capital was a mix of let's get really commercial returns and also let's be pretty concessionary and try to get a new thing into the world and serve a very low income, rural, off-grid type of person. So a lot of that work, in my belief, and it's also again what I love doing, is marrying numbers and story. So if you come to any of our workshops here at Holocene, we do a workshop called Make It Stick. When we talk about Make It Stick, it's really how to be a great presenter and storyteller and how to really craft a sticky presentation. And one of the structures I love for a presentation, and for any entrepreneurs out there, I'd highly recommend this one, is heart, head, heart. So you have to start by telling a story and grabbing someone's heart. So what is the situation that exists today that's suboptimal? Tell us about that situation. Tell us about the big problem you're trying to solve, and make us feel it. Give it a name, give it a person. But you can only do that for so long. That grabs people's attention. They want to listen. Okay, cool, you got me. Now you bought my ability to listen to what you're going to say next. If you do that for too long, people want to grab onto something data-driven, especially investors want to hear, okay, cool, I'm listening. Now tell me something I need to know. So now you get to the head. So here are a couple facts now about this problem and why it could be solvable, and why if it is solvable, it could be really interesting. Okay, cool. Like, I understand the problem now. I'm feeling it from an emotional, mental perspective. But now you're giving me some data to grab onto, and also shows me that it is solvable, and maybe I can benefit from also helping solve it. And then on the way out, you want to get back to heart. So you want to have a call to action, and you want that call to action to be inspiring, and you want it to be clear, and you want it to be succinct. But you also want whether it's an investor or a partner, whoever it is, to be an ambassador for you. Because startups don't have enough money, right? So like, if you do this the right way, even if this person says, hey, you know what, I'm not the person to invest, but I love what you're doing, let me tell 5 other people. Because your call to action is so clear, and because you've left them with an emotional kind of overhang, if you will, which is really important. So another framework is what, so what, now what? So similar, like, what is the thing, why should I care, and then what am I supposed to do about it? So again, these are frameworks just to help build good presentations. But I think what we did really well, and what I still believe is hypercritical, was to show people this is a big problem. It's a really important problem. It's a very real problem. And then we can also solve it. So now let me show you the financial model. Let me show you the unit economics. Let me show you how this thing actually works. And oh my God, like, this huge problem is something that actually makes sense a little bit with numbers. Okay, cool. And then what I would also always do is take people to the field. If we were working with an investor and we were getting pretty close to raising funding, I would take them out into rural Tanzania or Rwanda or Cote d'Ivoire, and to see a village light up, to see someone's home, like, this is a couple hour process. Like, people are climbing on the roof, they're installing solar power. The whole village is like, one by one, people are starting to come out. And there's a moment when the radio turns on or the light turns on or the TV turns on when everyone just goes ballistic. And it's amazing. It's like the coolest thing to watch in the world. So for someone to hear the story and then to look at the numbers and be like, oh my God, like, you guys are doing what? Like, this thing is really hard. I think that's what people have to remember, is that climate tech in Africa is pretty hard. We don't have as many roads. We have last mile. We have customers who don't have a lot of money. This is a big, big switching cost for them. It's a big risk for them to take. To see that thing go on and have the numbers make any sense, like to have them make any sense that this thing could be commercially viable, I think really changes the calculus. So I think we did a great, great job. And again, I'll give it, most of the credit to operations and to the teams I worked with, of having a really clear mission, of really wanting to find that impact that could be commercially viable. And then I think working with great partners. Working with great investors, working with great corporate partners. So it was an amazing journey. But again, I think if you are out there in the market, really using that heart, head, heart narrative, I found to be really helpful.
So you did mention that in terms of culture, there's a few things that you learned along the way. When you came to Launch Lab, how did that affect your thoughts of culture, and what did you actually implement to be successful?
I'll give a lot of credit to my former CEO, Lindsay Handler, who was the CEO of Phoenix when I was there. I grew up in it was a very defined culture at Credit Suisse. It was a very Wall Street culture. And I did love it for a long time. But you also asked, like, when do you know it's time to get off that mountain? When you know the culture of an organization is not yours anymore, it's time to leave. And if you can't change it, then there's a moment when you have to say, cool, do I want to be part of this culture or do I want to leave? And after 11 years on Wall Street, it was very clear that wasn't a culture that I wanted anymore. Working with Lindsay at Phoenix, which it was acquired by Engie, is now called Engie Energy Access, is probably the largest distributed solar company now in Africa. An incredible story. But Lindsay created such a unique culture at Phoenix, and it was one that was very values driven, very clear mission, very clear, like it was tangible. Like, you'll know, one of my coworkers, Duval, said it best, like, when you walk in the room, you almost want to smell it. Like, if you walk in, you're like, there's something different in here. I felt that way about Phoenix. And to me, that ended up being a 2,000 person employee company. To do it at that level of scale was pretty impressive. So that was a big takeaway for me. It's also one of the things I really studied when I was at Stanford, was what is culture? How do you build it? It was a lot of the books that I'd read, like, can you build culture? It's a really interesting question. My launch lab for me, actually, that experience probably was mostly about, can I build culture? So I did take over a business that I inherited. It wasn't a team I'd hired, so that's always a new thing. COVID hit literally a month into my leadership role there. Was new in South Africa. It was a very difficult thing to figure out. So really the key question was, can we build culture within this experience and our own unique culture? And the answer was definitively yes. I mean, it is, and Holocene can help people do this if you'd like to get into it, because we went about, myself and Abby and Duval and other team members, in being very, very deliberate about who are we. So perhaps a big idea, but especially if you work in the startup world, I believe a startup, and I think it was Peter Thiel who said this, Peter Thiel said it's the least number of people possible to get product market fit. But I think he also said it's the most amount of crazy people you can talk into a big vision. And that's really what it is. Like, if you think about what is a startup, it's a tribe. It's a little tribe of people who are thinking about the world a little bit different. And every tribe in the world has a set of rules and customs that define the interactions of that tribe, whether it's religion or literally a tribe or a sports team or whatever else. They're all just mini tribes. And if you don't codify your tribe's mission, its values, and if you don't operationalize those values, it won't work. And I do believe that culture is the secret sauce of startups. First of all, you have to solve a hard problem. You have to get the right people in the room. But culture actually is the underlying foundation of doing everything else. So a big part of that was really aligning on mission. Like, why are we here? Why are we all in the same room? Do we all want to solve this hard problem? Do we realize that solving it's going to be difficult? The next big thing, and you have to get people in the room who really want to solve that hard problem. That's really, really important. Not just any hard problem, like that hard problem. The second one then is setting really deliberate values. So we had 5 values at Launch Lab. We have 5 values at Holocene, and they have to live. So for instance, our first value at Holocene is eyes of the entrepreneur. Okay, well, that's memorable, first of all. And second of all, well, what does that mean? And we literally have bullet points on what that means to our team, because every word means something different to every human. So for us, eyes of the entrepreneur really means we work with entrepreneurs because we are entrepreneurs. We only put products into our entrepreneurs' companies that we would use ourselves, that we have tested ourselves. We look at the world through entrepreneurial eyes. Where others see challenges, we see opportunities. That's what that value means. So that's the next big thing. So really to have your values, and those are literally the ways that your company interacts, your tribe interacts. So if I go full circle back to my Wall Street experience, my first startup, we didn't have a clear mission. We didn't have values. So when things really start to happen quickly, values are really just the rules that it's the rules of engagement in an environment. And if you don't know what they are, then you do anything, right? So what values really become, if you do them well, it's literally how you treat one another. So in that first instance, it was very financially successful. We achieved our what, but the how we got there, I didn't respect. And even to this day, it still feels kind of icky because I just didn't get there the way I wanted to. I didn't act the way I wanted to in the pursuit of a goal. So even if you achieve that goal, it's not as meaningful. The third part is operationalizing those values. So it's fine if you have a mission and values, but if no one knows them, and not even if they don't know them, if they don't live them and live them uniquely, then it's not real. It's inauthentic at that point. So there's a bunch of stuff, and again, Holocene can help you with this. How do you make these things come out in daily life? How do you help everyone on the team see someone living the eyes of the entrepreneur value? Or we have another value called life live wild. Like, what does that thing look like in practice? And how do we recognize our teammates and our tribe when they live that value? So there's also belief that humans have to have 5 positive interactions with each other for every 1 negative interaction. So one of our values is candid and connected communication. So we really believe in an open and honest communication, which I think is super, super important for startups. That's easier said than done. So really, in order for me to say something negative to you or something that's even constructive or criticism to you, the belief is I have to really have 5 positive experiences with you before that 1 seemingly even mild constructive feedback. Values and the living of values should allow you to have those 5. So by living the values and then by really rewarding people for living those values, you start to build up those positive experiences that can then allow you to really communicate very openly, which again is, I think, hyper important for a startup because really there's no time to waste, and everyone's gathering information and resources aren't that plentiful. So if you can't communicate clearly, if you can't build up a culture that allows people to interact, knowing the rules of engagement, then it's very, very difficult. So yeah, Launchpad was, I think, an incredible experience in building a very unique culture that was ours. So yeah, very, very proud of that. And then Holocene, same thing. We have 5 values. We have a new mission. We have new values. But
could you describe, since we're speaking about Holocene, could you describe your mission?
Yeah, for sure.
And also maybe your service offerings?
Yeah, totally. So at Holocene, what we say is we're a community of outdoor enthusiasts building inspiring climate solutions. So that's what Holocene is. And what does that mean? So, I mean, first and foremost, we want to preserve the planet by building climate solutions. So that's our way of coming at climate change. Again, like climate change is our thing. Like that's the hard problem for this company. If it's a 30-year problem, 30-year company, perfect, great. Let's get after it. How do we want to go about doing that? Some people will do it through, if you go to COP28, you're going to do it through political means. You could do it through government. You could do it through grassroots activism. You could do it by picking up a water bottle tomorrow. Like there's lots of ways to come at climate change. For Holocene, our way of doing it is 2 things. One is building a community of climate activists, or climate curious, I should say. What I'm seeing again is this wave of people who are really curious about climate, and they really exist in the middle of this Venn diagram. So they're technically skilled, they love the outdoors, and they're curious about climate. If you're in the middle of that Venn diagram, come hang with us. That's all it is. We're going to get outside. We're going to take a run and learn about some rocks. We're going to use design thinking to think about how can we make conservation more commercial. We're going to hear someone who's building carbon markets talk to us about how carbon's going to become the next gold over the next 30 or 40 years. So if you want to have some fun outdoors and you want to try to positively impact climate, if you want to get on the right mountain, like if you want to come climb the mountain with us, come on out. That's literally it. It's no pressure, no obligations, come on out. Because we believe that community, is really, really important. Because right now, Holocene's 4 people. We'll be probably 6 people by the end of the year. But 6 people aren't going to change the world. We can do our best. But if we really want to inspire climate solutions, then we have to start planting seeds in other people too, where our 6 becomes 60, our 60 becomes 6,000. Our real belief is that the narrative around climate change really has to change. So let me ask you a question. I'll throw it back your way. When you think about climate change, what are some words that come to your mind?
Climate change? Glaciers melting, like the big things. That's what comes to my mind.
Honestly. Is it positive or negative?
Negative.
Very negative, right? Everything is very negative. It's very pedantic. Stop using that. We're all going to die. 1.5%. Humans, this is the hardest problem in the world to solve. Really hard problems need massive amounts of creativity and collaboration. Are you most collaborative and most creative when you're scared or when you're having a lot of fun?
Definitely having a lot of fun.
That's it. So the whole narrative around climate change needs to change, period. So what Holocene is going to do is make it fun and make it exciting. And you're going to see a lot of fun facts come out from Holocene. It's not about the extinction of species. We all know that stuff. That's not motivating anybody anymore. What about the fact that 50% of all renewable capacity is available in Africa? What about the fact that 75% of the buildings that are going to be built in Africa haven't been built yet, and therefore we can build them right from day one? What about the fact that electric vehicles will most likely be able to be the urban fleets for Africa, maybe even faster than they could be in Europe and the States? Like, that's really interesting, right? So now let's go outside, let's have some fun, let's learn some new skills, and try to solve this problem together. So first and foremost, we are a community of outdoor enthusiasts. We put it that way because we want to work with people who want to be on the mountain and have some fun, inspiring climate solutions. So hopefully by coming to an event, you'll be inspired to either start a business, pick up a bottle, do whatever it is. Secondly, we make investments. So what Holocene does, we've made 8 investments so far. So we believe that the most additive and additional that we can be in the market is by investing high risk equity. So we invest up to $50,000 of our own capital, but not just cash. Companies at this very early stage, so we call bootstrap, pre-seed, and seed stage. So basically you have a couple of people, you're very passionate about a problem, you have some earned insight. Like there's some reason why you think you can solve this climate positive problem. So to be clear, only climate problems, only Africa. You've put something in the market, you think you may have a customer, you understand the customer's needs, you've put something in the market, you might be starting to get a couple sales, or maybe you're starting to get even 100 or 1,000 sales. But now what do? That's where Holocene wants to come in. So what we do is we throw in some cash, and then we throw in a lot of hard work. So where Holocene really comes in, we have, I think from a commercial perspective, So again, we've been doing this for 10 years now. We've been able to see companies go from really nothing to Series A across the climate tech journey. So we help to come in, we bring financial strategy, we bring culture, we bring hiring practices, we help teams just really take a load off, right? If you're only 2 people, but you really need 20 in order to get to the next level of scale, but you can't afford it and you can't find the other 18 people, well, we'll try to be 3 or 4 for a while. And we usually work with companies between 8 and 12 months. So the real goal is to be able to throw in some cash, throw in a lot of hard work, and get a bootstrap company to pre-seed, get a pre-seed company to seed. The big thing I hope people take away from this discussion too, if you're interested in climate tech, please understand that it's different than other businesses, that other venture capital businesses.
What makes it different?
Yeah, thanks. So it's a nice softball there. So when people think about raising funding, they think about equity. So people equate capital to equity. If you're building a fintech company, if you're building a property tech company, if you're building a B2B software company, odds are the only capital you should raise or can raise is equity. If you're building a clean tech company, the odds are you have some hardware. You might have to give your customer a loan. That's called a receivable. You might have, with that hardware, you need working capital. You need a way to finance that hardware that's not with equity. As we said earlier, this stuff is really hard. So you might need some grant capital. You might need some like free money to try to figure out how to get this product to market, or how to get a really poor person to switch from what they've been doing for 200 years to something new. Human capital might be more necessary. And then carbon finance is also a piece of this. So carbon is a whole thing it's a whole different discussion. We could talk for hours about that. I know you talked to Paul from Toco. He's an expert in this. So climate tech companies and entrepreneurs have to remember that equity does not equal capital. Capital is made up of grants, human capital, equity, debt, and carbon finance, at least, and maybe revenue-based finance, and a couple other things you could throw in there. So really what I learned in that first wave of climate tech, and what what Holocene's trying to bring to the second wave, is we didn't really realize that until Series A in that first wave. So what that means is that entrepreneurs were building climate tech companies, and they were selling lots and lots of equity in order to fund their hardware, in order to fund their customer. So by the time you got to Series A, and remember, every time you raise more equity, you make more promises. And generally, equity promises are big promises. Like, we're going to build 3 new products and go to 5 new markets and double sales and be profitable. When you make these big equity promises, you just start spending more and more money. And you're spending more and more money at a time when you are spending more and more money. So like the thing really picks up speed. What we want to do what we have to do with the second climate tech wave, get what's called a blended capital structure. So let's just say you go out at pre-seed, the average pre-seed round, let's just use seed for example. So the average seed round in Africa is $1 million US. $1 million US of capital. But when people hear that number, they usually think $1 million US of equity. It's not true. So let's just say you're going out, you're a climate tech company, you're doing, so I'll use one of our companies as an example. So Zimmy is an awesome B2B fleet charging software, basically a little bit of hardware, a lot of software here in South Africa. We've worked with Michael for the last year, very, very proud of the success they've had, very proud of the work that Michael's done. So Michael was able to go to market for his pre-seed round and was able to raise about 1/3 of his capital as equity, 1/3 of his capital, knock on wood, as a grant, and then 1/3 of his capital as debt. And why is that important? Basically, if you think about how expensive capital is, equity is by far the most expensive capital. So let's just say if you're using what's called a discount rate, assume 30% is the discount rate you use for capital. And that's what you discount all your cash flows by to give you the value of what your business is worth. So assume equity is 30%, because you can only sell so many shares. And assume also when you sell your equity, you're making big promises. So it's not only just the cost of capital, you're promising something big. Grant capital is effectively worth 0. So all of a sudden, if half your capital is equity and half is grant, you just brought your total cost of capital from 30% to 15%. If you can bring in debt, assume debt is about 10%. So now if you're 1/3, instead of selling tons of equity at 30%, making tons and tons of promises, now what's called your weighted average cost of capital, or your overall capital for the company, is around 12%. So you've been able, for one, not to make as many promises, which is really important for entrepreneurs, and 2, you've now saved your shares. Like, you're not selling as many shares. Because I think a lot of what happened in the first wave was by the time companies actually got to some level of scale, people have been working for like 10 years at this thing. They didn't own the business anymore. The investors own the business, not the entrepreneur. So again, climate tech is very, very, I'll be very honest, I don't think climate tech companies need to hire a CFO until Series A. If you only have scarce resources, definitely get a finance director. Like, have a great finance director. Make sure, if any entrepreneurs out there, please, 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 your financial data has to be good. If you're building a software company and you think that your IP is your database and it's your software, think about the same thing for your accounting. You cannot raise money if you do not have good financial data, period. So have a great accountant, have a great finance director. But that's what Holocene can do, is really help come in as that outsourced CFO, if you will. We're not on your team, but we're going to throw in some cash. We're now really part of the company. And what we can help do is drive financial strategy. We can help make sure companies see this blended capital approach. We know the investors. We know how to pull this stuff together. And ideally, it lets founders and the team do what I think they should do best, which is get product market fit. Be with your customers, understand their problem, be building solutions to customer problems, and starting to learn how to scale and price those solutions. So a startup is basically it's really a sprint between product market fit and runway. If you can get product market fit before you run out of money, you win. If you don't, you don't. What we want to be able to do is let the founders figure out product market fit, help them with that, while we really help on the runway side. We do a little bit of both, but that climate tech stuff is much more complicated than fintech or property tech or anything else, and it does need a technical skill.
What's your thesis for investing?
Thesis for investing? Oh my God, that's a big one.
If you could summarize it, I know that it's
buy
a
low,
loaded
sell
question. Buy or less.
There you go.
That's a good, okay. It's pretty good.
Oh man, it's such a tough question. Know what risks you're taking, I think, is a part of it. I think I'm not good at this yet, but I'm learning more and more, especially where we invest. You can have founder risk, you can have technical risk, you can have scale risk, you can have jurisdiction risk and FX risk. Like, if you are making an investment, do enough analytical analysis, have enough difficult conversations with your team that by the time you make an investment, you can say, I think these risks are cool. Like, I like the founders a lot. I think this wave, so I'll get into an analogy here as well. This wave is a good wave. We think this tech can scale. We think the economics make sense, but we're worried about FX risk. We're worried about the fact they're bringing stuff in dollars and making payments in shillings. That's a real risk that we know we're taking. We own the risk that we're taking. We know we don't think we're taking this risk or this risk, but we are going to take jurisdiction risk. They're based out of South Africa. South Africa is not always the easiest place to raise funding from, so that's a risk. So I think when you're investing, know what risks you're not willing to take and know which ones you are, and own that, and then manage that.
Yeah, it is a loaded question.
Yeah, it's a big one. It's a really big one. But also, I mean, like anything else, like really just learn from other people. I'd highly recommend, if people haven't read Buffett or Ray Dalio or Benjamin Graham, there's so much good stuff on investing. But really value investing, I would highly recommend reading about value investing. Peter Drucker, you're really understanding how to look at intrinsic value within a company and not just try to read the market.
Got you. And in Holocene, you are a team of 4?
It's a team of 4 right now. Yeah, we are going to be hiring 2 people soon. So please look at our website for a couple of job postings.
One of those team members is your wife.
Yeah.
So could definitely. We talk about
totally
how do you manage the personal and the professional?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. Oh man, that's a great question. I'm very blessed. My wife is just absolutely incredible. Like I said earlier in this discussion, one of my key sectors is my wife, is my relationship, my commitment to her, and our relationship together. It didn't happen on purpose. I do think Abby and I met at Stanford. We met in the design school at Stanford in a class about branding and marketing. So I believe that there was a massive self-selection bias in our meeting. The fact that we both self-selected at that moment into that class, I think gave us a higher probability of becoming what we are today. But yeah, it's been a wild road with her. And really, she stepped in to help out at Launch Lab at a moment when we had a second kid and our business model was pivoting and I was overwhelmed. And she really came in and just took a burden off. I was an entrepreneur underwater. I was drowning, and she came in to really help solidify. And she's just a phenomenally smart, phenomenally gifted, phenomenally compassionate, and really just took a huge load off. And we never really meant to work together for that long. It was supposed to be kind of an interim thing, and then we really enjoyed it. And it's not for everyone. I wouldn't recommend it for everyone. I wouldn't say it's something everyone should consider, especially in a startup environment. But I love it. It gives us the first real project we worked on was how do we build culture. And when you build culture, really just like it really is a belief system. And so it really almost forced us to say, what is our belief system? Like literally, like because every startup is the child of their founder, like period. Like your culture is going to come from you, or else it's totally inauthentic, and that doesn't really work. So culture is born from your views on the world, your belief system, and it forced us to say, well, really, what is our belief system? I don't think we realized that at the time, but it's what it became. And like I said, with our culture stuff, like we do a thing called team coaching circle. We get big into Enneagrams. It gets pretty touchy-feely. Like this thing gets pretty deep. And it's really given Abby and I an amazing opportunity to really just understand who we are as people. We have tons of times every day and every week to test this thing out. Sometimes it goes really well, sometimes it doesn't. But no, I couldn't be more blessed to work with her. I couldn't say better things about her. And again, not for everyone, but I would say if you are thinking about working with your significant other or spouse, if I could prop the Enneagram, so Enneagram is a kind of a personality assessment. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. Doing an Enneagram, going down that road with your partner, even if you're not starting a company, I'd highly recommend the Enneagram. It's really just a phenomenal way to get to really know a person. But I think the biggest thing as a partner you have to bring is curiosity about your partner as well. Is the realization that every two people are different. We always have positive intent. We always believe that the other person has positive intent, and then being open to that. And that's why I say I think we self-selected. I mean, Stanford is a place that is very vulnerable and very open and really rewards vulnerability. And I think we were both very open to that. But that lifelong learning about your partner is super, super cool. And there's really no better way to learn about a person than work at a startup. Talking about animal spirits again. We keep coming back to animal spirits, but yeah, it's not for everyone, but it is an everyday process.
Were there any challenges?
Oh, for sure.
If so, how did you overcome them?
I mean, I think you overcome them by communication. But understanding you have to have 5 positive interactions for one negative. You really have to invest in those 5 positive things. You have to be willing to realize you're not right all the time, that you have a view on the world that is your view. It's informed by your decision, your personality, but the other person is also living their life and has a view on the world, having curiosity about them. And then we have, again, another thing for entrepreneurs is don't be afraid to ask for help. I have 4 or 5 different people I work with. Call them therapists, call them coaches, call them whatever you want. But like, you have to have people that can come in and act as an innocent, unbiased third party. You have to have people that can come in with new frameworks. And you have to be able to go to other people who you know and trust to be able to talk things through while you're still doing it with your partner. But I would highly recommend in a startup environment, especially because it is stressful. It is real. It's busy, it's stressful, it can be disorienting. To really invest in the time and the expertise necessary to have a framework and have processes and practices you go through to really cultivate that practice, really, that relationship.
And I heard you speak a lot about mindset, specifically related to entrepreneurs. So if you could describe the perfect mindset for a successful entrepreneur, what would that be?
Yeah, I won't say perfect. So we just did a course last week for 75 students here, which was phenomenal, called Entrepreneur Mindset. And the premise there is, and I think what I learned at Stanford actually wasn't really how to build businesses. I learned that a bit, but I actually learned that by building businesses as well, was really how do entrepreneurs view the world? And then the premise of this workshop that we do is you don't have to start a business to be an entrepreneur. So the mindset that entrepreneurs employ, and I'll give you a couple of the frameworks here. So a startup is ambiguous, it's uncertain, it's volatile, it's scary. That's kind of how life is too, right? At times, life can be all these things. Great entrepreneurs have a couple of mental tools that they use in order to make sense of an ambiguous environment and to thrive within the challenges of an environment. And I think those are tools that every person on earth can use, but they're really important for entrepreneurs. They're almost like you can't really get in the entrepreneurial game without them, is my view. So the premise of that workshop was how to use entrepreneurial mindset to build your dreams. So you don't have to start a business, but if you want to live in a new country, if you want to start a new career, if you want to find your significant other, you can still use these entrepreneurial mindsets to do that. And the 3 that we spoke about, the first one's Grit. So Grit's a book by Angela Duckworth.
Amazing.
It's an amazing book, amazing TED Talk. Like, go watch it, listen to it, read it. So the first one's Grit, which is a mixture of passion plus perseverance. We get into passion. There's a really cool Japanese tool called an ikigai, which is kind of like this Venn diagram of, I think, what am I good at? What does the world need? What can I do every day? And what can make me money? So just start to get into like, what is my passion? Like, what is the mountain you want to climb? And I think it's really important that people have hypotheses and don't be scared of them. Like, I think this might be the mountain I want to climb, and then go test it. Go get out there in the world and tell people about it and do something to figure out, is it right or not? Like, don't sit on hypotheses, go test them. But what is that why? Because they believe if you know your why, you can go through any how, right? Or any what. So the passion side, and then perseverance. So Angela Duckworth in her book also talks about the hard things, or it's called the hard things rule. So her and her family, basically you would pick something. So everyone in the family would pick one thing that's hard to do, whether it's learning to play an instrument, learning a new language, whatever it was. And you have to do it for a set period of time until there's a natural stopping point. So you can't quit in the middle. So I'm going to go play soccer for one full season. And no matter how hard it is, you can't stop in the middle. And then you practice it, and you tell everybody about it, and you give feedback on what it was. And if that doesn't work, then you do something else, but you do it for a set period of time. So that builds perseverance. Because like I said, I think too many people start climbing mountains and they just get off the mountain, because climbing mountains is hard. Like, you're going to sweat, you're going to suffer, but can you push through the suffering to figure out if it's the right mountain? So I think grit is a phenomenally important entrepreneurial mindset, because building a new world. What are entrepreneurs trying to do? They're trying to say there's something suboptimal in the world today, and they're building a new tomorrow. It's hard. Period. It's hard. It's scary. It's hard. It doesn't exist. So if you're not really passionate about that problem that you want to solve, and not only if you're not passionate about it, but if you're not willing to endure and persevere, you're just not going to do it. That's also important for life, right? If you do want to make a move, if you want to go from SA to Europe, or if you want to go from America to SA, or whatever else it may be, like, have a mission and persevere. Like, be willing to push through those first moments of pain to figure out, can I get to the other side? So grit's a really important one. The second one is growth mindset. So a book by Carol Dweck. Carol talks about what is a growth mindset versus what is a fixed mindset. A fixed mindset generally believes that we're born smart. However smart I am is how smart I am. Failure is failure. I have to defend my intelligence. It feels like, kind of makes you like almost shiver. A growth mindset is about hard work. It's about inputs, not outputs. It's about the fact that we can all learn. I can ask questions. I can fail. Even when I say it, it feels more open and expansive. Again, entrepreneurs have to have a growth mindset, because you're going to fail a lot. People are going to tell you they hate your product. People aren't going to pay you. The problem you thought you were solving isn't the right problem. Like, you have to be able to get up every single morning or multiple times within the day and say, cool, like, I'm going to find a solution. If you believe that your intelligence is capped and you can't like grow new intelligence, or you can't fail and learn, you're just going to give up. Like, you're not going to be able to keep persevering.
That's a tough life.
It's very tough, man. So that book changed my life personally, but having that growth mindset, again, phenomenally important for entrepreneurs. But even let's say you do move from SA to Europe, you had that grit. Like, it's still going to be hard when you're up there. Like, it's going to be hard to make friends. It rains every day. Like, do you have a growth mindset that can see opportunities even once you've gone into the thing? So even if you've started a company, starting is the easy part. What happens when your first customer doesn't pay you, or when someone quits, or when the problem is much harder than you anticipated? Do you have a growth mindset that's going to figure that thing out? And the last one I love, and so this actually comes full circle. So the professor's class that Abby and I met in, Jennifer Aker, her and a woman named Naomi Bagdanis wrote a book called Humor Seriously. So I'd highly, highly recommend reading Humor Seriously. And this is literally now about how infusing humor in your life and humor in your business is great for you. And I think this is so important as an entrepreneur and as a human. So a couple of things they talk about. One is that similar to growth mindset, with growth mindset, you kind of live your life on the verge of saying yes and. Okay, yes, that's possible, and, instead of no but. With Humor Seriously, you kind of live your life on the verge of laughing, of a joke, of connection. Because when you bring in humor, there's actually this whole like cocktail of chemicals that go off, serotonin and endorphins and all this stuff. It makes your message more sticky. It builds connections. And especially when you're in a startup environment, and I'm not good at this, is where Abby's much better at this than I am, and why I'm really happy to have people like this on my team, is it really just brings everything down a level, right? Like, humor is hyper important. So let's go back to our analog of, okay, cool. Like, I'm one moved from Europe to from South Africa to Europe. Right, let me go the other way, because I think people should come to SA. So I'm moving from where we were in California out to South Africa. I have the grit to do it. So I have a passion to live and work in Africa. I've persevered for a long time to get there. Cool. Now I'm there. We can't get a visa. It's really hard to make friends, which isn't really that true, but the visa thing could be tough at times. And now, do I have a growth mindset while I'm there? Like now I'm here. Do I have a growth mindset to see even these challenges as opportunities once I'm on the ground? And lastly, like, okay, cool, we're here. We've committed to it. We're now finding that opportunities can lie on the same side of challenges. Can we laugh through it? Like when things get too tense, when it gets too hard, can we just crack a joke? And can we have some fun with the whole thing? So I think that's a cocktail. I think those three things come together. Entrepreneurs use them. They use them in spades. I think all entrepreneurs are different. But if I had to, from everyone I've read, everyone I've worked with, I think these are three character traits that do come through. And then again, as humans, like remember, this is stuff that humans are always living in ambiguous, volatile, uncertain environments. Sometimes we pretend we're not, but we are. So build this toolkit. You build these skill sets to help you solve problems. The last one I'll mention again is design thinking. Like design thinking, if you haven't taken a course, if you haven't gone online, do design thinking. Design thinking to me is an amazing framework to make decisions in the face of ambiguity with imperfect information, which is always what life is. So having a framework to make hard decisions. In this analog, we moved from America to South Africa based on a design thinking experiment. I'll give people the spreadsheets. Someone will probably listen to this that has one of my spreadsheets, but it was a full design thinking experience that Abby and I went through. And at the end, it said move to Cape Town. And we moved here, and then we moved to Stellenbosch. And 5 years later, we're pretty happy about it. So these are, I think, just getting out there and letting people know there are frameworks to build businesses. There are frameworks to make hard decisions. And there are frameworks for how to navigate through this is at least helpful for me.
Final question.
Yeah,
so the world is changing at a rapid pace, especially with AI disrupting a lot of industries and businesses. What's your advice to entrepreneurs on how to think about the future?
Be passionate about solving a specific problem. Like, to be honest with you, I know not that much about AI. I barely know about a lot of other things. I'm going to focus on one thing and be really good at it. I'm focused on one problem. It's a broad problem, but I'm starting to narrow it down to other things. But focus on a problem, be really good at solving it, be really passionate about solving it, and connect with people who also want to solve that problem is really, really important. Like entrepreneurship can be pretty lonely and it can be pretty scary. So connect with a community of people who can support you in it. But I think there's a moment to be macro and a moment to be general, and there's a moment to go deep. And I'd recommend, especially for entrepreneurs, to really go deep on a problem and really come at it with the mentality not of, I know the solution. That's not the point. Like the point is not to know the solution. The point is to really understand the problem. And then whatever solution fits that problem. Again, for me, the big problem is climate change. I've thought about it a lot of different ways. My way of trying to combat that problem is to build a community and to invest and build businesses. Political activism doesn't work for me. Grassroots isn't fast enough. That stuff just doesn't fit my personality or my way of coming at the world. But that's the problem I want to solve. I'm going to do it through building startups in Africa in a specific way. And ideally, I'll dedicate the next 20 or 30 years of my life to doing that. So really go deep on a problem would be my advice. Don't go too macro. Stay a bit micro in that sense.
Amazing. Josh, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to acknowledge
so
you for your, not just giving me your time today and all this wisdom and golden nuggets, but also your impact that you're making in Africa.
Oh, thank you.
And also the devotion and the passion that you have towards these businesses, specifically in climate. So I want to acknowledge you for doing that and just wish you all of the best for what's to come.
And thanks for getting the message out there. I mean, it's important for, I think a lot of people, I mean, in Silicon Valley and London, some places you can kind of fall over and hear this stuff. Like it's all around the ecosystem. We're still building ecosystems here in Africa. So I think it's harder to come by just experiences and vulnerability and people admitting that they don't know. And I'll be the first person to admit, like all this stuff is just a human testing things in the world. So I think by you putting it out into the world and by people interacting. So I would ask like www.holocene.africa, come send us a message, let us know what you think. Ask questions, test us. Like that's how we build. That's how we build together. So yeah, thanks for putting putting these interesting information out into the universe.
Cool. No problem.
Thanks so much.
Cool. Thanks, Josh.
Yeah, thanks, man.